השקדיה פורחת ושמש פזורחת, ציפורים מראש כל גג מבשרות את בוא החג. ט"ו בשבט הגיע חג לאילנות, ט"ו בשבט הגיע חג לאילנות.
What is Tu B'Shvat? Tu B'Shvat takes place on the 15th day of the Hebrew month of Shvat. Tu B'Shvat is the birthday of the trees. It is also called Rosh Hashanah La'ilanot, or the New Year of the Trees, and is one of the 4 new years of the Jewish calendar. It is not mentioned in the Torah as it was established by the rabbis from the Mishnah/Oral Torah. It marks the start of spring in Israel when the trees begin to bloom.
How is Tu B'Shvat celebrated? Tu B'Shvat is celebrated by eating the fruits of the land of Israel, mainly the 7 species, and learning how to protect the earth. Tu B'Shvat has also become a symbolic date for restoring the Jewish connection to the land of Israel. Starting in the Middle Ages, the tradition of hosting a Tu B'Shvat Seder was born. This tradition has grown in popularity in recent years.
Tu B'Shvat has become the unofficial Earth Day of Israel and a celebration of ecological advancements. It is an opportunity for Tikkun Olam by cleaning up the physical environment, recycling, etc. There is also a tradition of planting trees in Israel. This is often done through the JNF, which has planted more than 250 million trees to date.
It's that time of year again. Tu B'Shvat, the birthday of the trees. What does that even mean? Were all the trees born on the same day? And anyway, who cares? Why should we even celebrate the birthday of trees? It's time for the Aleph Beta Tu B'Shvat crash course. Let's start from the beginning. What does the name Tu B'Shvat even mean? Don't go looking for the word tu in a Hebrew English dictionary, because Tet Vav is actually an acronym. It's 15 in Hebrew. So, Tu B'Shvat means the 15th day of the month of Shvat. So, what's so great about the 15th of Shvat? Well, according to the Talmud, it's the beginning of the agricultural year for the trees. Just as a school year starts in September and businesses have their own fiscal years, Tu B'Shvat is the beginning of the tree year. But why do we even need a tree year? I'm so glad you asked. In biblical Jewish law, there are a bunch of guidelines that apply to fruit, especially in the land of Israel. We give Truma, the gift offering to the priests, which is about 1/50th of our produce. There's Maaser, tithes, which is 10% given to the Levites. And then there's Orla, the prohibition to eat a tree's fruit for its first 3 years, and fruit from the 4th year must be eaten in Jerusalem. From the 5th year and on, the fruit can be eaten anywhere. So, when keeping these laws, knowing a tree's age is actually quite important, which is where Tu B'Shvat comes in. Tu B'Shvat marks the new year. It's a cutoff. If a tree's fruits begin to ripen, say a month before Tu B'Shvat, well, once Tu B'Shvat rolls around, now it's considered to be in its 2nd year, even though it's only existed for a month. If it ripens a month after Tu B'Shvat, then it's got to wait 11 months until the next Tu B'Shvat before it starts its 2nd year. It's kind of like filing taxes. If you start a job in October of 2015, you still have to fill out your tax form for 2015 at the end of the year, even though it's only been 2 months. You don't wait until October of 2016. But why is the 15th of Shvat the cutoff? That feels so arbitrary. But actually, it makes a lot of sense. The calendar new year starts in the Hebrew month of Tishrei, and the rainy season begins shortly afterwards, about October time. By the 15th of Shvat, about 4 months later, most of the season's rain will already have fallen, and that's when the year's very first fruits begin to ripen. So anything that begins to ripen after Tu B'Shvat is considered to be a product of that year's rain. Anything before then is considered to be a product of last year's rain. So that's Tu B'Shvat. And we have to wonder, why in the world do we celebrate the beginning of the tree's agricultural year? Well, that may have to do with the reason behind all those agricultural laws to begin with. Each of the laws have their own reasons, But at their core, we think that they're all about a very similar theme: recognition of God as the creator. For example, take a look at Nachmanides' reason for Orla. As we mentioned, the fruit from the tree's 4th year is eaten in Jerusalem, with God, so to say. But trees don't actually produce their best fruit during their first 3 years. Orla teaches us to hold off for the first 3 years, so that when we do go to Jerusalem, when we thank and appreciate God for the fruit that we have and eat it, so to say, with God, we do it with the very best. Truma and Maaser serve very similar roles. Even though we technically give them to the priest and Levites directly, the Torah is clear that we're symbolically giving them to God, and God then takes the produce and gives them to the priests and Levites. Giving our fruit to God is acknowledging that everything we have is really from Him, and He chooses what to do with it. And at the end of the day, supporting the priests and Levites with a part of our produce is our way of showing appreciation for their work on behalf of the nation. Perhaps it's both of these themes that we celebrate on Tu B'Shvat. At the beginning of the new agricultural year of the trees, we show our appreciation to God by recognizing Him as the source of trees and of food in general. We come together as a community to sing, celebrate the land of Israel, its trees, its fruit, and of course, to eat. This year, as we celebrate Tu B'Shvat, let us take a moment to recognize God as the source of everything we have, to use this spring, this new year for the trees, as a new year, a new beginning for us all.
Why is Tu B'Shvat celebrated at this time of year? Tu B'Shvat is considered the beginning of the year for trees because it is the midpoint of winter, the strength of the cold becomes less, the majority of the year's rains in Israel have fallen, and the sap of the trees starts to rise. As a result, fruit begins to form.
ארץ חיטה ורוסיה הורה וגפן ושעינה ורימון ארץ זית שמן ודבש the Shiva minim of Israel land we love so much.
The pomegranate is reputed to have 613 seeds. There is a tradition that the Torah contains 613 mitzvot, 248 positive commandments, and 365 negative commandments. In eating it, we aspire to become as full of mitzvot as the pomegranate is full of seeds.
Wheat and barley. Among the many images passed down through the generations and depicted in murals of thousands of years ago are those of wheat stalks. Wheat represents the endeavor to nourish our physical bodies, as well as our spiritual aspirations. It must be planted, plowed, cared for, harvested, winnowed, ground, sifted, kneaded, and baked, a long and difficult process. Similarly, when we are far away from the land, our connection to Israel needs to be nurtured throughout our lives.
Symbolic of Netzach, endurance and longevity, the fig is believed by some to be the tree of national Israel, reflects the everlasting fruitfulness of the Jewish people and our capacity to endure and survive in spite of every hardship.
Olives, or in Hebrew, zayit, are of great importance in Israel's history. More than any other fruit, the olive symbolizes this continuity. The gnarled barks of the ancient olive trees on Israel's terraced hillsides seem to exude a wisdom accumulated from witnessing centuries of human history. Due to its usefulness and sturdiness, the olive tree is often used as an analogy for the Jewish people. Thus, Yeshua ben Levi compares the Jewish people to an olive tree. Why is Israel compared to an olive tree? Because just as the leaves of an olive tree do not fall off either in summer or winter, so too the Jewish people shall be cast off, neither in this world nor in the world to come.
Dates. Tamal. We eat dates to celebrate the sweetness of this reunification, born of trees that now grow in the ancient sands of our homeland, a fruit that is mentioned in the stories of Moses, David, and Tamar, whose branches provided food, shelter, and sustenance for our people for so many years, and was the recognized symbol of the kingdom of Judea.
Grapes, anavim. The grape is one of the oldest cultivated fruit trees. In the Torah, we read that Noah planted a vineyard after the flood. The original home of the grapevine is believed to be the Old World, in the countries around the Mediterranean Sea. The Torah tells us that when Moshe Rabbeinu sent 12 scouts to spy out the Promised Land, they brought back with them samples of the fruit grown there. The weight of a bundle of grapes, which they had brought, is described as requiring 2 men at each side of a pole to carry it. Today, Israeli wines are a celebration of our beautiful vineyard scattered in various regions throughout the country.
The 7 species. There are 13 attributes of God. The 7 species each have their own attribute they represent and/or embody. Wheat is kindness, barley, strength, grapes, goodness, figs, perseverance, pomegranates, humility, olives, foundation, and dates are royalty.
This year is a Shemitah year. The Shemitah year, or the sabbatical year, occurs once every 7 years and is the Sabbath of the land. It is mandated in the Torah that the land may not be worked during this year, but people can pick what grows naturally in the fields and the orchards.
How do Jews provide for themselves in a Shemitah year? In the Torah, God says that on the 6th year, your land will produce 3 times the amount you need, because it will provide for year 6, year 7, the Shemitah year, and the following year, when you are rebuilding and sowing your fields.
What does the Shemitah year teach us? It shows us that the reason we have food every year is because of God, and without Him, we wouldn't have food. It also teaches us to be grateful for all the food that we have every year.
What lessons can we learn from trees? 1. A tree is planted by first putting a seed in the ground, but it is necessary to take care of it by watering it and removing weeds. Just like how people need to nurture their souls by doing good deeds and removing bad things from our lives. 2. A healthy tree will continue to grow his whole life. We too can grow if we continue working on being better people. 3. Many times, trees are tied to supports to make sure it grows in the right path. We too are supported by family and friends to make sure we go on the right path. 4. The beauty of a tree are the fruit that it produces. Our fruit and our beauty are shown by our deeds that we do.
We all think we know that our lives wouldn't be possible without trees. As a 2011 Nature report detailed, sudden declines in trees would lead to the failure of crops, virtually unbreathable air, and the collapse of ecosystems. That's not to mention the dozens of everyday products that would vanish. But researchers working with the U.S. Forest Service and other agencies are trying to bring that reality home in more urgent terms. They want to detail how the decline of trees harms human health not just in hypotheticals, but in immediate and measurable ways. Several studies have suggested that tree-filled settings can reduce stress or boost mental health. Now new research is going further. Late last month, the Forest Service unveiled a model suggesting that in pollution removal alone, trees save 850 U.S. lives a year and prevent 670,000 cases of acute respiratory problems. The study, published in the journal Environmental Pollution, looks at 4 key air pollutants and values their removal by trees at about $7 billion. And that isn't even the starkest link the Forest Service has made between trees and human health. In a 2013 study in the American Journal of Preventive Medicine, researchers traced the rise of the emerald ash borer in Michigan as it spread across the state's borders. The bugs have killed more than 100 million ash trees since 2002. But the Forest Service saw something else in the data. They looked at human mortality rates by county, and after reviewing 1,296 counties spread over 15 states, they found that the areas most affected by tree deaths also saw spikes in cardiovascular and lower respiratory tract illness. While the research is only starting to establish these links, one timely takeaway is the importance of urban forests. Trees cover more than a third of the United States, but that figure varies sharply in different urban areas. Washington, D.C. reports 36% tree canopy versus 24% in New York City. As the Environmental Pollution Study notes, with 80% of the U.S. population in urban areas, local forests can have a demonstrable impact even if they remove less than 1% of pollution from the air.
Our obligation to take care of the earth. Midrash Kohelet Rabbah 7:13. Upon creating the first human beings, God guided them around the Garden of Eden, saying, "Look at my creations. See how beautiful and perfect they are? I created everything for you. Make sure you do not ruin or destroy my world. If you do, there will be no one after you to fix it." Sefer HaChinuch, number 529. This is the way of the righteous and those who improve society, who love peace and rejoice in the good in people and bring them close to Torah. That nothing, not even a grain of mustard, should be lost to the world, that they should regret any loss or destruction that they see, and if possible, they will prevent any destruction that they can. Not so are the wicked, who are like demons, who rejoice in destruction of the world, and they are destroying themselves.
New Year's resolutions. As on the Gregorian or secular New Year, December 31st, many people make resolutions for this coming calendar year. Take this Tu B'Shvat to make an environmental resolution and a commitment to safeguard this earth.